Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, after hosting a joyous Christmas party, Opie's world shatters when he discovers his wife's cheating with a church leader. The revelation leaves him devastated, and the pastor supports him as he files for divorce. The wife's life unravels, leading to homelessness, while he rebuilds his life in a new community, discovering personal strength. He emphasizes the consequences of adultery, urging loyalty and advocating for honesty in relationships. The protagonist navigates heartbreak, finding solace in self-dependence and embracing a hopeful future post-divorce. Now let's get into the story. After my wife and I were married for 12 years, we finally hosted a Christmas party. It was the 10th year in our own home, and that time flew by. We were really involved in our Christian church, so we felt it was overdue to hold a Christmas celebration with our friends. My wife was very excited and got really dressed up for the night. She bought all kinds of alcohol, claiming that people drank in Bible times as well. I just rolled my eyes and let her do whatever she wanted. That was pretty much how our marriage survived so well for so long. When people started arriving, she started music and brought out the food. The food and drink were so good. It really was a blissful night. Everyone was thanking us and giving us hugs, and we just felt really good. That was until I noticed my wife was missing. Then I didn't feel so good, although she still probably did. I checked our spare room because it was the first instinct I felt to do. It was where we put all the coats there, on top of the coats. One of the church leaders was having intimate with my wife. I was drawn, UNK, and could not believe what I was seeing. It was on top of everyone's coats. When I walked in, she screamed at her lover, claiming he was a complete moron for failing to lock the door. I immediately told her she was a terrible person for committing adultery. She was extremely angry. I couldn't believe how she had the nerve to be so angry, but must have been self-defense for being caught red-handed. I'm not going to lie, I wanted to hit her. I wanted to hit him even more, but I resisted and he pulled up his pants and ran away. I knew people at the party were going to see him come out and know what just happened. There was no way this could be kept a secret. I realized, like a scene coming apart, that my marriage would never be as it was 5 minutes ago. It was almost too much for me to take. My heart felt like it was going to explode, and I fell to my knees because I was so overwhelmed and dizzy. My wife escaped the room while I was like this, not stopping to see if I was okay. I blacked out. I woke up to the pastor of the church slapping my cheek and asking me what happened. I told him I found my wife with AP. He was appalled. He knew exactly what I was talking about because he saw them both come out at different times, looking super spooked and guilty. Right away he prayed with me, but I'm not sure what good it did. My wife was missing until the party was long over. She finally rang the doorbell several times at 2 a.m. Because she didn't have her keys, I assumed she was at AP's house for all that time. The pastor stayed over at my house for support. Report and answered the door to tell her she made a huge, irreversible mistake. She shoved her way inside and passed out on the couch, completely drunk. The pastor told me I could stay at his house while I filed for divorce. I graciously accepted. He had a kind wife and an adorable baby. I helped with the baby, hoping to have one of my own someday. I didn't let my wife sabotage my hopes for what I may find with someone someday. During my stay, I babysat for the pastor and his wife, and they had a good time together. I was glad I could help and had time alone to figure out how to depend on myself for answers, not necessarily God or anyone else. It was hard, and I did cry sometimes. I felt like life wasn't ever going to be as good as it felt with my wife. But I proved myself wrong. I found an opportunity to do what I loved. After the divorce was final, my wife chose not to return to our church, and I believe she lost her faith in the consequences of her actions. She became homeless and couldn't depend on AP because he had trouble paying his bills. After he was cut from the church staff, I moved to a different part of the countryside. It was easy for me to do it because I saved up money without my wife knowing. I don't recommend saving money behind your spouse's back, but maybe just keep it in your name only. I hope my story helps everyone to stay loyal to their spouse no matter what, or just divorce them before deciding to commit adultery. It causes pain and destruction, and do unto others as you would do unto yourselves. Today's second story. In this story, Obi discovered her wife's secret interactions with a man she kissed. Despite protests, he insisted she reveal the truth, leading to a confession of emotional cheating. He banned her from the Saturday market and later discovered her at the man's house. The confrontation led to separation and despite her resistance. Now let's get into the story. Life 33 was an expert shopper. It helps that her grandmother and mother were very materialistic people while keeping a budget. She would hunt for the perfect sale, which is why I-37 didn't usually jump up to go with her because she could be out for 6 hours or more. She would go out once a week, every Saturday, leaving the house by 6 a.m. She'd go to Saturday's market, then go to the mall, eat lunch, and probably shop more. We were married for 8 years, and the whole time she was in the habit of doing this. She took her 5-year-old daughter with her sometimes. My wife was a consistent light in my life, and I did not know she didn't deserve my trust. She started taking our daughter less and less often, leaving the house without waking her up or giving her the choice. I asked her why, and she said she could get back sooner without bringing her along because a lot of the time. She would start to complain and get tired long before my wife was ready to come back home. I suppose that was a reasonable explanation, but my daughter and I were both bummed because she enjoyed those trips with her mom. Our daughter actually started asking her each time if she could go with her, and she'd say no each time. She'd do something else with her the next day, or bring home something nice for her, but it wasn't the same. I let it go for a while, but eventually, I felt like I had to say something. I confronted her and told her she needed to take her with her that Saturday. She was not happy. I couldn't believe how inconvenient it was for her. She started to accept it and actually did follow through, but that Sunday she went out alone. Usually, we all had family time and practiced meditation. Our girl always turned it into a game of peeking without getting caught. When the wife got back, she was really happy, like everything was fine. Then my daughter asked a question that led to the discovery of what was really going on. She asked her mom if she met the man with the puppet today. My wife forced a laugh and said no, he's only at the market on Saturdays. I asked who this was, and before my wife responded, our daughter said he was the man Monty kissed yesterday. I looked at her with wide eyes. She knew we had to talk. I excused myself to another room and waited for my wife to set up our daughter with toys before joining me. I quizzed her until she was blue in the face, but she couldn't convince me her lies were true. She tried telling me our daughter was talking about something else, but I knew her speaking capabilities were pretty accurate. She even looked at my wife like she was going to be in trouble with Daddy. She knew it was wrong, and she wanted me to know, so my wife eventually came clean. She said he was a nice guy that she got close to over the years she'd been going to the market. He liked her more than friends, and she didn't want to break his heart, so she started giving him kisses. I didn't think there was any way she could believe this was okay. I told her she betrayed my trust by doing this, even by being friends with this guy without telling me. I'd like to know who she's involved with, even if only for safety's sake. Now I was suddenly aware of a guy she'd gotten to know for years, introduced to her daughter, and kissed. I looked her straight in the eye and asked her if she ever slept with this man or anyone else. She blushed hard, looked away, and told me no. How much more obvious it could have been that she was lying to me. I stared at her, but she only tried asking if we could leave the room now, and I said no. I told her to tell me the truth because her whole body looked like she was lying. Her mouth got really dry, and she started to dry heave. She excused herself to her bathroom and threw up. I told her she needed to get it off her shoulders so she could feel better, but she pretended not to have anything to say. I told her I didn't want her to go to Saturday's market anymore, and she lost it. She said this was one of her greatest joys in life, and I told her that she spoiled it for herself because she started kissing an older guy. I wondered if she said older to try to get me to let it go like I'd picture an old, lonely man. I wasn't a fool, so for a whole month, she didn't go anywhere over the weekend. Finally, she made an excuse to go out, but she took her daughter with her to help convince me she wasn't up to no good. They come home with groceries or other stuff that proved they weren't at Saturday's market. I hated that this had become an issue between us now. Every time she left, I wondered if she was seeing Mr. Kisser. On the first day, she didn't offer to take our daughter. I followed her. She didn't go to Saturday's market, but she did go to someone's house. Before I got confirmation, I knew this was AP's house. I could feel it in my bones. It was like my wife's energy and emotion were contagious to me. I knocked on his front door after my wife went inside. AP answered it, and I asked him why I saw my wife just come inside. My heart was pounding out of my chest as I pictured this guy meeting my daughter. He looked young and confused, but before he could ask me anything, I asked if he was the puppet guy at Saturday's market. He covered his mouth for a second and asked me if I was her husband. I said yes and yelled my wife's name. She came out and he told her to leave, then he told me she introduced herself as a widower. I felt like my heart stopped beating permanently and I was only surviving off air and my still blood. My wife came rushing out like she had a right to be mad, brushing past me. I followed her. She frantically tried to get in her car, but I grabbed her keys from her and ran to my car, locking the doors. She watched helplessly as I took her house key off before giving them back. She told her parents I kicked her out for no reason, so they let her stay with them and arranged to have a truck come get her stuff. They came over to visit with our daughter and asked me what really happened. I told them the truth, and they must have made my wife's life at their house a living hell because every day she told me she hated me for telling them what happened. She moved out in just 5 weeks, opting to take turns sleeping on different friends' couches rather than stay under their roof. The divorce went in my favor, and my wife is at least partially involved with our daughter.